You love your life, you love your family, and you wouldn't trade them for the world. But do you ever catch yourself wondering, where did I go in all of this? If you've been listening for a while, you know we've been talking a lot about stepping into who you're meant to be, whether that's through purpose, confidence, or creativity. But today, we're zooming in on something even more personal: you. Because before you can pour into something else, you need to feel like yourself again. Hi, I'm Petrina, and this is Pretty Deep. I'm so glad you're here. If you've ever looked into the mirror and thought, where did I go? Not physically, but in the sense of who you are, what you love, what excites you, then this episode, it's for you. Because the truth is, as women, we are natural nurturers. We pour ourselves out for the people we love. We give, we serve, we care, manage, show up, and we do it all so instinctively that we don't even stop to think about it. Until one day, we look up and realize we've been so busy doing for everyone else that we haven't connected with what excites us. We've parked our hopes and dreams and our ambitions so many times due to busyness that we can't remember the last time we made space for them. Now, listen, I'm not about to tell you to stop serving, to stop loving, to stop pouring into others. That's who you are. It's literally your superpower. You don't just switch that off. And honestly, I wouldn't want you to. What I'm saying is this: there has to be some kind of balance. Because when we give, but never stop to refuel our own soul, eventually we feel depleted. And if that's you, I want you to know you're not invisible. You haven't disappeared. Who you are is still in there. I know this feeling looks different for everyone. Maybe you love your life, but you still feel like something is missing. Maybe you've put everyone else first for so long that you don't even know what you want anymore. Maybe you've been so busy doing all the things that you haven't had time to ask yourself, who even am I beyond all my roles? And listen, I'm not here to tell you find yourself by walking away from that life you've built. I'm not about that. Because what if reclaiming yourself isn't about resenting the roles that you hold already, but about honoring them? What if it's not about chasing after something new, but about seeing the value in what you're already doing, but with fresh eyes? And yes, I know some of you are thinking, but what if I actually am underappreciated? What if no one sees how much I do? What if nobody acknowledges the sacrifices I've made? That's hard, and maybe something we can talk about in a future episode. However, you are not invisible. Today, I want to help you reframe that limiting belief because you haven't disappeared, you're still there. And there is a way to start feeling like you once again without losing everything that matters to you. So, what are we going to talk about today? Here's what we'll discuss. We'll talk about why women feel like they've lost themselves in the first place. That silent shift that happens over time. We'll discuss how to reframe your identity because you're not just a mother, a wife, a sister, a just anything. We'll talk about practical ways to reconnect with who you are without feeling selfish or neglecting the people you love because you don't want that anyway. I'll be real with you. This part might challenge you. It might not be what you're used to hearing because the world tells us that the answer to feeling lost is to focus more on ourselves. But what if that's not actually the solution? Listen, I love you dearly, but I'm not going to sugarcoat things or tell you what everyone else is saying. I'll tell you the truth with love. Sometimes that truth is confrontational. It pushes against what we've been told for years. It might even be uncomfortable at first. But I so hope you lean in because I believe it could change things. And as always, we're going to keep it real. We'll keep it warm and we'll go pretty deep. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Maybe you've never actually said the words, I feel like I've lost myself. But it's like one day you woke up and you realize your life is full. so full, but somehow you feel like you're missing from it. That's a hard one to admit. And I know because I see this pattern in so many women I know. You might be in a season where your kids need you less, but instead of relief, you feel unmoored. Maybe your life has been so wrapped up in being a mum, a wife, a caregiver, or a professional that you don't even know what you want anymore. Or maybe you're just tired. Tired from years of doing, managing, remembering, showing up for everyone. And suddenly you wonder, when was the last time you showed up for yourself? Let's talk about why this happens. So, there's actually an identity shift that no one talks about. As women, our identity is constantly shifting. One day, we're independent, chasing dreams, defining our own life on our own terms. Then we step into new roles: wife, mother, professional, caregiver, and suddenly life looks different. And here's the thing: we chose those roles, we love them, we took them on willingly. But that doesn't mean they don't change us. They require things from us, they stretch us, they shape us, and sometimes they even consume us, and their inertia, it carries us. We pour so much of ourselves into these things and into the people we love that we forget to keep even a small part for ourselves. And years later, when we finally come up for air, we realize, I don't know who I am outside of all these things that I do for everyone else. It's not that we resent these roles, because we don't. But in giving our best to everyone and everything else, we forget to stay connected to ourselves. And here's the sneaky part: we start throwing out these little lines like, oh, I'm just a mom, or oh, I'm just a wife, or I'm the one that keeps it all together. But let's be real, you're not just anything. Those roles, they're enormous. They shape whole lives and futures. The danger isn't that the roles don't matter, it's that sometimes we forget we matter too. Then, of course, there's the silent work of women. Have you ever noticed that when things run smoothly in a home, no one really acknowledges why? The meals get made, the schedules get managed, school forms get signed, bills get paid. The fridge, it magically refills itself, aka you doing the 14th grocery run of the week. And no one stops to ask how it all happens. Because when you're doing an amazing job, it's easy for people to forget how much you're actually carrying. And that can make you feel invisible. I remember something a counselor once told me: if your family is thriving, if life is flowing, it's because you're doing an incredible job. You're not unseen. You're just doing it so well that no one even realizes how much you're holding together. Wow, that hit me. Because as women, so much of what we do is silent work. The work that isn't flashy, that doesn't come with awards or applause, but it's essential to the well being of our families. And if no one sees it, if no one acknowledges it, it can feel like we don't exist. There's another reason so many women feel lost. The world keeps telling us that we should always feel fulfilled, that happiness should be our top priority, and that if we don't feel amazing all the time, something must be wrong. That, my friend, is a lie. The truth is, life is not always fulfilling. Every season is not going to feel exhilarating. Sometimes life is just normal, and that's okay. There is beauty in the everyday. There's meaning in the mundane. And you know what? There's deep, profound impact in the simple acts of showing up, loving well, and being faithful to the people entrusted to us. The world tries to tell us that self fulfillment is the ultimate goal. But let's be real. If that actually worked, wouldn't we all be blissfully happy now? A life centered on self, it doesn't fill us up. It leaves us emptier. Why? Because we weren't created to be self obsessed. We were created to love, to serve, to give. And there is joy in that. Look, I'm not saying we should ignore our needs. Not at all. Stewarding your well being, mentally, physically, spiritually, it's essential. But balance is key. If you spend every ounce of yourself giving, you end up burnt out. But if life's all about chasing your own happiness, guess what? Still empty. Neither extreme works, and you know it. True joy is not found in obsessing over ourselves. It's found in loving well, serving with a full heart, and also making sure that we're filled up enough to do so with joy. I've met so many women who feel guilty about doing something for themselves. In my photography business, I've had women tell me, I'd love to do a portrait session, but I just can't spend that kind of money on myself. And I get it. As women, we're natural nurturers. We are wired to give. But noble sacrifice does not need to mean self neglect. Taking care of yourself does not mean you're selfish. It means you're stewarding your energy, you're stewarding your mind and your spirit so that you can show up better for the people you love. And if we're being honest with ourselves, we already know this. Because when we're exhausted, overwhelmed, running on empty, we don't really serve our families with joy. We serve them with resentment. You deserve to pour into yourself, not at the expense of others, but for the sake of showing up as the best version of you. Maybe the key to reclaiming yourself is not in rejecting your roles, but in learning how to steward them well without losing yourself in the process. So, how do we reclaim ourselves? That's what we'll talk about next. Because if you're feeling lost, I promise you're not gone. You don't need to erase everything and start over. You just need to reconnect with what makes you feel alive. Let's get practical. So, what if you're not lost, but you're just overlooking what's already there? Let's shift gears for a second. So many women feel like they've disappeared into their roles. I think we've been so conditioned to look for big things, big achievements, big recognition, big defining moments that we forget just how much weight and impact the so called small things carry. I once heard my senior pastor say that children are like gold nuggets placed in your hands. Now, I just quickly want to shout out my beautiful senior pastor, Bobby Houston, here. Bobby, you sowed so much into our lives. We love you and will forever be grateful. Anyway, coming back to what I was saying, before they're polished, these nuggets, these gold nuggets are children. They may look rough and unassuming, but as we nurture and guide and love and pour into them, they are being shaped into something beautiful and valuable. And here's the thing, when they are young, we don't yet know who they'll become. The mother of a world changer, she doesn't know she's raising a world changer. She just loves and teaches and prays faithfully. And that alone is powerful. Think about it. The mother of a future doctor, artist, scientist, pastor, or leader, she doesn't know what they will become, but her influence, it definitely shapes them. Even the smallest acts, packing their lunches, tucking them in at night, speaking life over them, praying for them, all of these things have an eternal ripple effect. They're not small, they're not insignificant. This is what purpose looks like. So if you've ever thought, I'm just doing the school runs, or I'm just keeping the house afloat, or I'm just showing up for my people. No, lovely. You're shaping lives, you're building futures, and that there, it's holy work. And it's not just in motherhood, it's in friendships, marriages, workplaces, and communities too. For example, I can't count the number of times a friend's name has popped into my mind, and I've thought I really should check in on her. And when I follow through and send that message, the response is almost always something like, Wow, how did you know that I needed that? You have no idea how important that was today. Was that a small thing for me? Yes, it took seconds, but to her, it wasn't small at all. Or think about when someone unexpectedly pays for your coffee, or a coworker takes the time to acknowledge something you did, or your spouse does something thoughtful like making your tea exactly the way you like it without even asking. My husband does this for me every single day. It's such a simple act, but do you know what it tells me? He thinks of me, he cares about me, and that means the world. Or take my mum. When my brother and I were growing up, every year before our big end of year exams, Ma would clear her calendar. No social events, no extra commitments, just being there for us while we studied. She stayed up late nights along with us, brewing cups of tea and coffee, bringing us snacks, because of course you need snacks when you're studying, just checking in on us. Not because she had to, not because we asked, but just because she wanted us to know that we were not alone as we toiled and labored. And looking back, That taught me how to love others. It taught me how to raise my own children. It showed me what real, selfless love looks like. What seemed small at the time, it wasn't small at all. In our marriages, we sometimes fall into the trap of thinking that grand gestures are what keep the relationship strong. No, it's actually the small day to day little moments of affection, acts of service, little considerations. They are what build a foundation of love and trust over time. Maybe it's a quiet hug in the kitchen. Maybe it's a text that says, I'm thinking of you. Maybe it's noticing that your spouse is tired and offering to take something off their plate. These things seem small, but over time, they are what build a home, a partnership, and a love that lasts. I love what the Bible says about this in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 13. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. The things we do out of love for our families, our friendships, our marriages, they endure. They may seem small in the moment, but their impact is eternal. So if you're thinking, I don't even know if what I'm doing matters, let me remind you, love. It does. It all does. Maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're just overlooking the value of what's already in front of you, what's already in your hand. All right. Now we've talked about why this happens, why so many women wake up one day feeling like they don't recognize themselves anymore. Let's talk about what to do about it. This is not about throwing out everything and starting over, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's not about abandoning your responsibilities and deciding that from now on, life is all about you. That's not the answer. And honestly, I know for a fact it wouldn't make you happy anyway. We already talked about how joy doesn't come from a self obsessed life. It comes from a deep, fulfilling, rich life, one in which you're growing, creating, contributing, and living in alignment with what matters. So, how do you begin reconnecting with yourself? Let's talk about a few ways to do that. I want you to start noticing what lights you up. Before you can start reclaiming yourself, you need to actually know what fills your cup, what makes you feel alive, what sparks joy for you. Sometimes we think of these things as extra or nice to haves, but actually they are vital to your well being. Doing things that bring you joy doesn't just make life more enjoyable, it strengthens you, it renews you, it makes you better for the people around you. One of the fastest ways to find yourself again is to notice what excites you and to intentionally make space for it. Think back. What did you love doing before life got so busy? When do you feel the most in flow, where you're doing something and time just disappears and it's hours before you even realize? What are the things that make you feel like you again? For me, it was dance. Now, my husband and I have been together since we were 16, and I've asked him for years to let's take dance lessons, and he always said no. But suddenly, one day, he said to me, let's take dance lessons. And so we started taking dance lessons together. And let me tell you, stepping on each other's toes at salsa class, it is surprisingly good for your marriage. It wasn't a big life change, just 1 hour every week. But it brought us so much happiness and made us feel close. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be a huge commitment. Even a small shift can bring so much joy. And here's a little reminder: creativity plays a huge role in this. You know, I had to bring this up. We talked about it in our episode on creativity, and it's worth repeating. Creativity isn't just painting or playing an instrument, it's anything that allows you to express yourself or bring something new into the world. And the benefits? Science backs this up. Creativity reduces stress and anxiety. It strengthens problem solving and cognitive flexibility. It releases dopamine in your brain's natural feel good chemical. It builds confidence by reminding you that you can create and dream and bring things to life. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, please go back and check it out. It will seriously shift the way you think about creativity. Let's be real. A lot of women struggle to prioritize themselves. We've been conditioned to think that doing something just for us, selfish, that taking a break means lazy, that if we spend money on ourselves, indulgent. I've seen this over and over again. As I mentioned before, in my portrait photography business, so many women told me, I would love to do a photo shoot for myself. I would love to have that experience and see myself in a beautiful light. But then, almost in the same breath, they would say, but I could never spend that kind of money on myself. I should spend it on my kids instead. Look, I get it. Truly, I do. But here's the thing, it's not selfish, it's smart. Because when you take care of yourself, you don't just have more to give, you actually enjoy giving it. Ironically, all these women that said no to a shoot didn't realize that one day when they were gone, their photos would be their children's most prized possession, a legacy, a beautiful memory of a person that they adored. I have a friend who felt guilty about taking any time for herself. She finally started doing a 20-minute walk alone after dinner. Just a simple walk. Within weeks, she noticed she was more patient with her kids and had more energy for the rest of the day. That tiny shift changed everything. And guess what? Nobody suffered because she took that time. If anything, her whole family benefited because she was more present and she was happier. So, if you've been carrying guilt about prioritizing yourself, even in small ways, please, it's time to let it go. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And making space for things that bring you joy, it doesn't take anything away from anywhere else or anyone else. It actually helps you give more, love more, show up more fully. All right, next, I want you to start journaling. Yes, really. I know. Some of you love journaling. Others hear the word and you're immediately tuned out. But hear me out. There's actually science behind why this works. Writing things down helps your brain to process your thoughts. It reduces mental clutter. It helps with decision making. It improves mood. Studies show that people who journal regularly, they experience lower levels of stress and anxiety. The best part is it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need a fancy notebook. Now I'm looking at you, all you stationery loving girls. You don't have to write full paragraphs. You don't have to do it every day. Just start. Just jot down what's on your mind. Doodle if you want to. Make bullet points. Some people journal by drawing and painting. I actually experienced the benefits of journaling myself when I was in between my New York Times writing job and my photography business. I was feeling really lost and completely clueless about next steps for my career. I started journaling, just a few minutes a day, pouring out all my thoughts. And after a few weeks, I started seeing a pattern. I kept writing about how much I miss storytelling and capturing beauty. That realization led me to pick up my camera again. And before I knew it, I had a fully thriving photography business. So trust me, journaling isn't just about writing your thoughts, it can actually show you what's next. And if writing feels intimidating, here's a simple trick: talk it out. Open the voice memos app on your phone and just start speaking. It doesn't need to be polished, it just needs to be real. Don't forget to label it with the date so that when you look back on it, you can see how far you've come. The goal is simple: give yourself space to think, reflect, and reconnect. Now, my favorite: make space for the one who knows you best. We've talked about a lot of ways to reconnect with yourself, but this is the one that changes everything. Because if you truly want to find yourself again, you need to spend time with the one who created you. Here's the truth: when you know God, you know yourself. When you see Him clearly, you see yourself clearly. So many of the struggles we face, feeling unseen, stuck, feeling like we don't matter, they're actually identity struggles. We are not seeing ourselves the way God sees us. We let culture, pressure, exhaustion, comparison cloud our view. But when you take time to sit with Him, to read His word, to pray, to be still in His presence, something shifts. You begin to see yourself the way He sees you. You are His child. You are chosen. You are loved. You are already enough, just as you are. This is why I always run to God first when I'm feeling lost or dissatisfied or frustrated. I pour my heart out to Him and I tell Him exactly what's bothering me. And you know what? He always responds. He never disappoints. He always shows up. I remember a time I was so frustrated with my kids. They were being consistently late in the mornings and causing so much stress by being unprepared, and then they would miss the school bus. It meant then that I had to drive them, usually a 1 hour round trip, and that would make me late for work. One morning after they left, I stomped up the stairs to my room. I flopped on my bed and started venting to God. And do you know what He said to me? Stop sweating the small stuff. I literally heard His voice saying that to me, and instantly I knew He was right. Here I was getting so worked up over things that, in the grand scheme of things, were totally not worth it. This is what happens when you take everything, your frustrations, your hurts, your fears, and you give them to God. He gives you clarity, He recenters you, He reminds you of what actually matters. In case you're thinking, I don't hear from God like that, trust me, He is speaking. The Holy Spirit, He speaks all the time. The more you involve Him, the more you hear Him. The more you listen, the more you learn to recognize His voice. It says in the Bible, my sheep hear me and they recognize my voice. So if you do nothing else, do this. Make space for God. The first few minutes of your morning, before anything else, before the phone, the news, before the distractions, meet with Him first, because everything good will flow from that. All right, you made it this far. I love that. Now come a little deeper with me. Let's be real. Everywhere we turn, we hear the same message. Put yourself first. Make yourself happy. Spoil yourself. Do whatever makes you happy. And look, I get why this message is so popular. It sounds good. It feels really empowering. And yes, it is absolutely true that we need to take care of ourselves. But here's where it gets tricky. Because if self focus was really the answer, wouldn't we all be happier by now? I mean, let's face it. We are so bombarded by the buzzwords of self love, self care. Think about it. We live in a time where we have more access to self care, self improvement, self help than ever before. We've got books, podcasts, courses, affirmations, mindset shifts, all of it. And yet, anxiety, loneliness, depression, they're all at an all time high. Why is that? Here's the truth: we were never designed to sit on the throne of our own little universe. That's way too much pressure for any of us to carry. God, He designed us for connection. He wired us for love, for service, for generosity. And He made us in His own image. And you know what? He is a giver. He loves, He pours out, He serves. And when we live the way we were designed to live, we don't feel drained. We feel filled. So maybe, just maybe, the secret to feeling full isn't taking more in, but pouring more out. Jesus said in Matthew 16:25, whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. That verse used to confuse me so much. What does that even mean? Lose your life to find it. But the more I walked with God, the more I've seen how true this is. We chase happiness, thinking it will come from finally getting what we want. But fulfillment doesn't come from grabbing, it comes from giving. Joy is not found in the endless loop of what do I need, what do I want. Trust me, that treadmill, it never stops. Real joy is when you flip the question: God, how can I love well today? That's where the magic is. This isn't about balance anymore. You heard me talk about that already. No, this is about who's at the center. The world says, put yourself there. God says, put Him there. And that's where the joy is. I want to talk about something that has changed the way I see life: the difference between happiness and joy. Now, happiness is circumstantial. It comes and goes, and it depends on how things are going in your life and the situations in it. It's tied to comfort, success, external things lining up the way you want them to. Joy, though, joy is deep. Joy is unshakable. Joy comes from knowing that no matter what's happening around you, you are right with God. He loves you. And He is working all things, in capital letters, all things, for your good. How comforting that is. Joy. Joy births peace. When you live from a place of joy, you're not constantly chasing the next thing to make you feel okay. You're already anchored. So, how do you cultivate joy? You do it by staying close to the source of joy, God Himself. Psalm 16:11 says, "You make known to me the path of life, and in your presence," and I'm pointing to God there is fullness of joy. Say that again, fullness of joy, not partial joy, not temporary joy, fullness. So if you're feeling empty, ask yourself, where am I trying to get my joy from? If it's coming from people or circumstances or achievements, I promise you it will run out. But if it's coming from Him, it will never fail you. I know this might challenge you. Maybe it even feels uncomfortable. I get it. When life feels overwhelming, the natural instinct is to think, I need to focus on me. I need to do what makes me happy. And honestly, that's not entirely wrong. Taking care of yourself matters. But focusing on yourself only will actually make you feel emptier. Think about the happiest people you know. I don't mean the ones who have the most money or take the most vacations. I mean the ones who radiate joy. Have you ever noticed that truly joyful people are usually the ones who love deeply, give generously, and serve without keeping score? That's not an accident. That's how we are designed. But don't just take my word for it. Test it for yourself. This week, do something completely selfless. Encourage someone, serve someone, love without expecting anything in return, and see what happens. I promise I'm not asking you to do something that I've not already tried myself. I have done this and I've reaped the rewards. Because Jesus wasn't just giving us nice words, He was showing us the way to a full life. And if something in you is resisting that idea, maybe that's the very reason you should try it. I want you to hear this. I'm not saying you don't matter. I'm not saying your needs and desires aren't important. What I'm saying is that the world will tell you that the answer is to focus more on yourself. But God's word tells you that the answer is actually to look outward, to love, to serve, and to give. And you know what? When you do that, something incredible happens. Instead of feeling drained, we feel filled. Instead of feeling unseen, we feel deeply connected. Instead of feeling lost, we find exactly who we were meant to be. This is the invitation. Are you going to take it? All right. Before we wrap up, let me just say this. If you've been feeling like you've lost yourself and wondering where that spark went, or if you've been caught in the tension between giving, serving, doing, and still feeling like something is missing, then I really hope that today's episode has at least given you something to think about. Because I really want you to walk away with this. You don't need to throw everything away to find yourself again. You don't need to chase some big dramatic change to be happy. You don't need to abandon the life you have already in order to rediscover joy. You already have everything you need. You're not just a mom, just a wife, just a professional, just a caregiver. You are significant. What you do matters. But even more than that, who you are matters. Please, please don't brush this off. You're not invisible. You're not behind. You're not replaceable. There's only one of you. You're unique. And I've said this before, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. That just means that you're beautifully complex and so wonderfully spectacular. And if you're feeling lost, the answer isn't just to focus more on yourself, it's to focus on the thing that actually fills you. Get back into God's presence. Reconnect with the things that bring you joy. Pour into others. Love deeply, give generously, serve with intention. Because when you do these things, you don't lose yourself, you find yourself. Before we go, I want to say this. Some topics like today, they just lean naturally deeper into faith because they're about the big questions in life. And some topics, like next week's, are a little lighter and more practical. But no matter what we talk about here, my goal is always the same: to encourage you, to give you something to think about, and to remind you that your life has meaning. I hope you'll stick around for all of it. Speaking of next week, we're diving into a big one: overwhelm, overcommitment, and guilt that comes along with all of that. You know that constant juggle where you're stretched thinner than a cheap pair of leggings? And no matter what you do, you feel like you're dropping the ball somewhere. Yep, we're going there. We'll talk about why balance feels impossible and how to stop beating yourself up and what God says actually about finding peace in the middle of it all. You don't want to miss this one. I cannot wait to share it with you. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love it if you subscribe to Pretty Deep on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And if you can share it with a friend who might need some encouragement today. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time. Lots and lots of love.